When you see the state the world is in, and the way it is ain't how it's been. When folks just care for gold, thank God I'm old. When you gander at the news, and you hear the language people use, then no sweet songs are sung. I don't want to be young. Birthday for me. I hope to, actually I lied a little. I'm not thrilled about being old. But on the other hand, I've actually had an amazing life so far. And I'd like to share some stories through some of my favorite songs tonight.
You need some glasses.
Before I start, I want to introduce a few people. First and foremost is my pianist here, Andy Lantz. Also, I'm not sure where he is, but Dan Moore. There you are. My voice teacher for the last 5 years, also a good friend and incredibly patient man. Then actually we have two guests from out of town, and PJ Piper is actually a CEO of a company that's responsible for these here and throughout, and another CEO of another UV company is here because this is actually a fairly unique installation, and it won't be, I suspect, in the future, but it is now. So, with that introductions, I'd like to start with my story. And my story is going to start actually in an absolutely beautiful fall day in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1978. I was 31, and I was there to marry Madeline Sylvia Crivello. Madeline and I met at Boston City Hospital, where she was an intern in the on a weekend of the great snowstorm of '78. Quite memorable. I couldn't help but notice her. She was beautiful, obviously smart, Harvard College, Yale Medical School, and I thought she might be available. She was on the phone with a girlfriend talking about going to the movies. As it turns out, she was engaged to another doctor at Yale at the time, but that was a little bit on the rocks, and I ended up asking her for a date. Now, hold on to your seats. That was February of 1978. We were engaged in May and married in September of the same year. Now, if my kids did that, I would have something to say. But if that isn't infatuation, I don't know what is. the street where you live. And oh, the towering feeling just to know somehow you're near. And overpowering feeling that any second you could suddenly appear. People stop and stare, they don't bother me, for there's nowhere else on earth that I would rather be. Let the time go by, I won't care if I can be here on the street where you live. Well, despite that whirlwind meeting and marriage, we had a good marriage for many years and resulted in two wonderful children, both are here tonight, Maria and Anthony, and also Anthony's Kate. Now, if there's anything more wonderful, or as wonderful, almost as wonderful, as welcoming your own children into the world, it's welcoming your grandchildren. And so far I have two grandchildren. There's Lorenzo, who is actually now almost 2 years old. This is Representative baby. And I've had the pleasure of babysitting for him every Thursday for much of his life. And now we have a newborn that only a few weeks ago, Lena, named after her grandmother, who can't be here tonight. But you don't have to have your own kids to appreciate the joy of new life. And there's even a song about that. Well, after 75 years, you learn that things don't always go as planned. Probably learned that over and over again.
Excuse me.
And so Midway through our marriage, Madeline was diagnosed with a severe illness, a terrible prognosis, and children were 4 and 8 at the time, and it was a very sad and frightening time for all of us as a family. But she was an incredible fighter, and despite all odds, actually lived 18 years to see both children grow into early adulthood, and she saw Maria graduate medical school. But our marriage didn't last quite that long. We separated just before our 30th anniversary, and she died 3 years later. I'd like to just take a small musical interlude. Madeline put up with my recorder playing for many, many, many years, and I thought I would play one little song in her memory. I don't know if a recorder's ever been played in this room before, but here goes. And I'd ask you not to applaud afterwards. With 75 years, you also learn that even after the bleakest of winters comes another spring. When lonely feelings chill the meadows of her mind, just think if winter comes, can spring be far behind? The leafless rose, the secret of a rose, it's merely that it knows you must believe in spring. You must, the tree is sure your leaves will reappear. It knows its emptiness is just the time of year. The frozen mountain dreams of April's melting streams, how crystal clear it seems. You must believe in spring. You must believe in love and trust it's on its way. Just as a pink rose awaits the kiss of May, so in a world of snow, of things that come and go, where what you think you know, you can't be certain of, you must believe in spring and love. it's on its way, just as a sleeping rose awaits the kiss of May. So in a world of snow, of things that come and go, where what you think you know, you can't be certain of, you must believe in spring and love. Well, that was then, and here is now, and here I am, 75 years old, and singing in a gay bar. I'm not going to go through all the details of how that happened, but I would like to relate one anecdote at risk of embarrassing a couple of people in the room, but it goes back to 2015. My daughter and I were standing at the kitchen sink preparing Thanksgiving dinner, and casually she said, "I really miss that wonderful woman you were seeing for almost 7 years after separation." I said, "Well, I missed her too, but ultimately it was my ongoing attraction to men that led us to go our separate ways." And she said, "Well, matter of factly, why aren't you dating men?" You could have knocked me over with a feather, honestly. I didn't know that was an option. But frankly, the acceptance of both my children and their spouses have allowed me self-acceptance, and that was a huge gift. Where am I? Here. That's right. Yes. So I did start dating men. And I joined the Boston Gay Men's Chorus with 200. And I met some really interesting people. There was Kurt, an opera singer in New York City. There was Alessandro, a lawyer in Rome. And that was all fun. But then I hit the dating jackpot and met a certain Doug Still, the urban forester of Providence, Rhode Island. Now that was 5 years ago, and I've never been happier. Now, Doug is a talented guitarist and singer, and sometimes of traditional songs mostly, but he also comes to this microphone regularly to sing American Songbook and other songs. I've asked Doug to join me now in a song about meeting that right person. Yes. I'm going to stand a little way because sometimes he influences me to sing with him.
Wait, I'm sure this is on.
Fantastic.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
It must have been moon glow, way up in the blue. It must have been moon glow that led me straight to you. I still hear you saying, "Dear one, hold me fast." right through the air.
Heavenly songs seem to come from everywhere.
And now when there's moon glow way up in the blue, I always remember that moon glow gave me you. We seem to float right through the air.
Heavenly songs seem to come from everywhere. And now when there's moon glow
Way up in the blue, I'll always remember that moon glow gave me you. That moon glow gave me you. That moon glow gave me you.
Well, ours is a wonderful relationship, but an unusual one. And it's made possible by the gracious acceptance of Doug's husband and my dear friend, Robb Barnard, who has agreed to get up and sing a song about how the rules change over time, and particularly what's allowable and what isn't. Robb.
We didn't tell you that you're each going to get up and sing a song, right? You all know that by now, yeah? Times have changed, and we've often rewound the clock since the Puritans got a shock when they landed on Plymouth Rock. If today any shock they should try to stem, stand landed on Plymouth Rock, Plymouth Rock would land on them. In olden days, a glimpse of stocking was looked on as something shocking. Well, heaven knows anything goes. Good authors too, who once knew better words, now only use four-letter words writing prose. Anything goes. The world has gone mad today, and good's bad today, and day's night today, and black's right today, and those boys today that we all prize today are just silly gigolos. And though I'm not a great romancer, I know that you're bound to answer when I propose. Anything goes. Ladies and gentlemen, not only an amazing accompanist, but the only man you want to ask about Apple products, Andy Lantz.
this before, it should be obvious that Robb is a professional musician. And a lot of guts for me to have him on my show. But he teaches music and drama at the Lincoln School in Providence, and an amazing performer, as you just saw. One of the getting a clue that I need to speak more into this. One of the best things that Madeline and I did early in our marriage was to build a house in Wellfleet, Massachusetts, on Cape Cod. It was originally weekends and a couple of weeks in the summer, but particularly during COVID times, it became a refuge. And it's the only family house we have now, so it's full of pictures and memorabilia of the kids growing up because it goes back that far. Well, Wellfleet is famous for its beautiful ocean beaches, pristine ponds, and for a particular culinary treat that some of you might know. Wellfleet's famous for its oysters. Oysters. Now, there aren't a lot of songs about oysters. I didn't have a big selection, but there's one by Cole Porter. Down by the sea lived a lonesome oyster, every day getting sadder and moister. He found his home life awfully wet and longed to travel with the upper set. Poor little oyster. Fate was kind to that oyster, we know, when one day the chef from the park casino saw that oyster lying there and said, "I'll put you on my bill of fare." Lucky little oyster. See him on his silver platter, watching the queens of fashion chatter, hearing the wives of millionaires discuss their marriages and their love affairs. Real little oyster. See that bivalve social climber feeding the rich Mrs. Hoggenheimer. Feel his joy as he gaily glides down to the middle of her gilded insides. Proud little oyster. After lunch, Mrs. H complains and says to her hostess, "I've got such pains. I came to town on my yacht today, and I really need to hurry back to Oyster Bay." Scared little oyster. Off they go on the troubled tide, the yacht rolling madly from side to side. They toss about till that fine young oyster finds that it's time he is with his oyster. Up comes the oyster. Back once more where he started from, he whispers, "I haven't a single qualm, for I've had a taste of society, and society has had a taste of me." Wise little oyster. I got the most wonderful card from Andy Lantz's mother today, an e-card, and it had an oyster on it, and it said, if I can remember exactly, basically, something of a wise oyster, to a wise oyster, and inside it said basically, "May all your oysters have pearls." So, recognizing our mutual Italian heritage. Nardell doesn't sound Italian, but my father was christened Carmine Nardiello, and Madeline's heritage was Italian. We named the house Villa Maria Vicino Mare. It has lots of Italian artifacts, if you will, and even a bocce court in the back that my father and I built. My father was a master carpenter, a builder, and when he was developing his business in the 1920s, it was an uncomfortable time to be an immigrant, as it is today, very often. So he changed the name from Nardiello to Nardell, and he and his three brothers formed a business, Nardell Construction. Now, further not to be identified as Italian, my father in his family home growing up forbade the use of garlic. So, and then in our family, we also didn't have garlic. So I grew up in an Italian-American household with no garlic. What were we, Irish? So you imagine my thrill when we would go visit family on my mother's side, and there'd be garlic sauteing in olive oil. My father's favorite singers were Italian-Americans, Dean Martin and Connie Francis. But sometimes at weddings we would hear actual traditional songs, particularly Naples in particular. And when I started learning to sing solo about 5 years ago, I wanted to sing some of these songs that I learned about opera impresario and opera coach Bradley Pennington, who not only has fluent in Italian but also knows Neapolitan dialect. So Bradley is going to take the piano for a moment and accompany me on a Italian Neapolitan song that you may not know. It's not as common as O Solo Mio or Torno Sorrento, but it was sung in the soprano, so there we go. Bradley. I want to tell you why he's taking the piano, what it's about, because, again, you won't understand it. So it starts off, this is rather melodramatic. Kateri, Kateri, why do you say such bitter words? Why do you torment my heart, Kateri? And then it ends, ungrateful, ungrateful heart, you have taken my life, all is past, and I'm in your thoughts no more. A little heavy.
Mia, tu te
So, like a number of my friends who went to the local Catholic college in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, we were the first to go to college in our family. So it was a big surprise to my family, to me, that I ended up in medical school in Philadelphia, and then ultimately at spending a career in Harvard teaching hospitals in Boston, ultimately reaching the rank of full professor at the medical school and also School of Public Health. There's one, I had some amazing mentors along the way, I have to tell you. There's one life-changing story that fits in here, and that is that when I was at Cambridge Hospital with David Bohr, who's here, I hired in 1983 a young man who was just starting Harvard Medical School, and he turned out to be Paul Farmer as a Creole-speaking outreach worker in our TD program. So now he's my boss. He's the chair of the Department of Division of Global Health and Equity at the Brigham. And so for anyone who is thinking about anything like a gift, you'll find on your tables a link to a little fund that I set up for my birthday at Partners in Health. Partners in Health is doing great work all around the world. Mostly I worked with them in Peru and in Siberia, Russia. But they do work all over the world now. Thank you. Now, as I mentioned, there aren't a lot of songs about oysters. There are fewer, probably about physicians or professors. But there's one, and it too is written by Cole Porter. Once I loved such a shattering physician, quite the best looking doctor in the state. He looked after my physical condition, and his bedside manner was great. When I gaze up and see him there above me, looking less like a doctor than a Turk, I was tempted to whisper, "Do you love me, or do you merely love your work?" He said my bronchial tubes were entrancing, my epiglottis filled him with glee. He simply loved my pharynx and went wild about my larynx, but he never said he loved me. He said my epidermis was darling, and found my blood as blue as could be. And he went wild ecstatics when I showed him my lymphatics, but he never said he loved me. Although no doubt it was not very smart of me, I kept on racking my soul to figure out why he loved every part of me, and yet not me as a whole. With my esophagus he was ravaged, enthusiastic to a degree. He said was just enormous, my appendix but he never said he loved me. He said my cerebellum was brilliant, and my cerebrum far from NG. I know he thought a lot of my medulla oblongata, but he never said he loved me. He said my maxillaries were marvels, and my sternum something to see. He did a double hurdle when I shook my pelvic girdle, but he never said he loved me. No doubt. He seemed amused when he first made a test of me to further his medical art, but he refused when he fixed up the rest of me to cure that ache in my heart. I know he found my pancreas perfect, and for my spleen was keen as could be. He set up all his sweeties, I'd the sweetest diabetes. But he never said, no, he never said, no, he never said he loved me. I was driving to Wellfleet in 2016 and listening to WROMR from Provincetown on the radio, and there they were giving the first Cabaret Fest Lifetime Achievement Award to someone I hadn't heard of, that many know, by the name of
Bobby Weatherby.
Bobby Weatherby, who is an icon in Provincetown. And I hadn't been in gay bars in Provincetown, but in 2016 we could do that. So I went to the breakfast the next morning, and who was playing and hosting that morning and singing? But Brian Patton, who's sitting here. And Brian mentioned Club Cafe and Napoleon Room and Wednesday night Broadway Hump Day. And I just want to give a call of thanks to Brian and Andy and Jim Rice and the many professional singers who invite us to this microphone every week to really enjoy this cabaret singing. I also want to thank Jim and Frank and David and John O'Neill who keep this place going. And again, thanks for the effort that went to make it a safe place to sing. Where did that lead me? Ah, yes. Part of Cabaret Fest one year, actually mentioned to me by a friend here in the room, was an opportunity to take a master class with the probably greatest living icon of cabaret singing at the moment, and that's Marilyn May, now 93, still filling rooms in Provincetown and in New York City, and to standing ovations. So I took a master class with her, and one of the songs that we worked on has become one of my favorite songs to sing, and we're going to do that for you now. Black cats keep across my path until I'm nearly mad. I must have roused a devil's wrath, 'cause all my luck is bad. I make a date for golf, and you can bet your life it rains. I try to have a party, and the guy upstairs complains. I guess I'll go through life just catching colds and missing trains. Everything happens to me. I never miss a thing. I've had the measles and the mumps, and every time I play an ace, my partner always trumps. I guess I'm just a fool who never looks before he jumps. Everything happens to me. At first my heart thought you could change this for me, that love could change the trick to in despair. But now I just can't fool this head that thinks for me. I've mortgaged all my castles in the air. I telegraphed, I phoned, I sent an aerial special too. Your answer was goodbye, and there was even postage due. I fell in love just once, and then it had to be with you. Everything happens to me. I've mortgaged all my castles in the air. I telegraphed, I phoned, I sent an airmail special too. Your answer was goodbye, and there was even postage due. I fell in love just once, and then it had to be with you. Everything happens, everything happens, everything happens to me. I mentioned Cabaret Fest. It happens in Provincetown every year. There are great pianists and mentors that come from all over. John O'Neill's been a mentor there. And last year, one of the songs that I worked on, I'm going to have Leni Lunderman from the chorus, a good friend, come up and help me with. Proper knight errant to set things straight. No longer a mild-mannered doctor and professor, I am, with my loyal squire Sancho Panza at my side, Don Quixote de la Mancha. And now all the bleak and unbearable world, thou art base and debauched as can be. And the knight with his banners all gaily unfurled, now throws down his gauntlet to thee. I am Don Quixote, the Lord of La Mancha. My destiny calls and I go, and the wild winds of fortune will carry me onward, whithersoever they blow. Whithersoever they blow. Onward to glory I go.
And Sancho, yes, and Sancho will follow my master till the end. And travel the world crawling. I'm his squire, I'm his friend.
Hear me, heathens and wizards and satans of sin. All your dastardly doings are past. For a holy endeavor is now to begin, and virtue will triumph at last. I am Don Quixote, the Lord of La Mancha. My destiny calls and I go, and the wild winds of fortune will carry me onward, whithersoever,
I'm his friend.
whithersoever they go. Onward to glory I go. It was almost 2 years ago in this room, and Andy Lantz was at the piano, and the singing host that night was Pamela Enders, one of the most appreciated singers in our community and beyond. I've asked Pamela to join me in a song, a duet, about keeping the music playing. And since she's a clinical psychologist, she knows it's really about keeping relationships going.
How do you keep the music playing? How do you make it last?
your heart will fall apart each time you hear his name.
I know the way I feel for you is now or never.
The way I'm afraid that in your eyes I may not see forever, forever. If I can be the best of lovers
And still be the best of friends.
if we can try with every breath to make it better as it goes. With any luck, then I suppose
The music never ends.
I know.
How do you keep the music playing?
Now or never.
How do you make it
I
last?
love the more than I'm afraid
How do you keep the song from
that in
fading?
your eyes I may not see forever.
Too fast. If we can be the best of lovers and be the best of friends.
If we can try with every day to make it better as it grows. With any luck, then I suppose
The music never ends.
We're going to be distributing some Prosecco. So I'm going to spend a little time telling you about this song. Maybe a little more time than I planned. Actually, this song was written by a jazz pianist by the name of Artie Butler. And he was in Lake Tahoe, he says in a YouTube video. And he was watching Johnny Carson. And George Burns was being interviewed. He interviewed George Burns. And he said, George, who was 83, what do you think about life? And George said, I think the second half will be better. So Artie Butler went home and supposedly wrote this song in 20 minutes. And he didn't write the words. There was another songwriter, but he wrote the tune. And he dedicates it to his, dedicates it to his father. This is my concluding song, and I think we can start. I think the champagne is suitable for now. No complaints and no regrets. I still believe in chasing dreams and placing bets. And I have learned that all you give is what you get. So you give it all you've got. I've had my share, I've drunk my fill. But even though I'm satisfied, I'm hungry still to see what's down another road, beyond a hill, and do it all again. So here's to life and funny how the time just flies, and love can go from warm hellos to sad goodbyes, and leave you with the memories you've memorized to keep your winters warm. But there's no yes in yesterday, and who knows what tomorrow brings or takes away. As long as I'm still in the game, I want to play for laughs, for love, for life. So here's to life and every joy it brings. Here's to life, to dreamers and their dreams. May all your stormy weather and all that's good get better. Here's to life, here's to love, and here's to you. May all your stormy weather and all your dreams be wonderful. Here's to life, here's to love, and here's to you. Thank you. You know?